Hi, welcome to the John Gaunt broadcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, live on YouTube, live also on Facebook and on X, but you can always be catching up on it later. You can watch it visually or you can just listen. Either way, please join in. Big question for you today is this: are you proud to be British? Or have you changed your opinion? We live in a changing world. Let's face it, Donald Trump runs the world now. But what do you think of our politicians? Do you think our politicians are proud to be British? Or do they actually despise, even hate our flag? And what is it to be British? I want you to help me with this. Put your comments down the side if you fancy. What is it to be British? Is it the old cliches of cricket on a Sunday afternoon, a British sense of fair play as long as we're winning, warm beer, fish and chips, chicken tikka masala? I don't know. What is it to be British? To queue? Is it to queue? But where do we fit in this world now? Because let's face it, it's globalization, isn't it? Is it hard to remain British and true to our core values? Do we have a shared identity anymore? See, I would argue that poll that came out the other day, which said that there are many people living in the country now who can't speak, or read, or write the English language, that's a damning indictment on generations and generations of politicians. Not just this latest bunch of useless no-marks, but all of them. Surely one of the central things of moving to our country or any country is to learn about their culture, learn their language. Because if you don't, you just disadvantage yourself. I mean, again, I don't want to be rude, but when you go to a hospital in Spain, they don't translate it into 65 million different languages, do they? You have to take somebody with you to translate for you. I had a mate who lives in Tenerife. He had to have a major operation. His daughter, who had been brought up in the Spanish system, knew the language. He's a disgrace there. He should have learnt it. So I've got no time for people who move to Spain and never learn the language. You should do that. But likewise, if you come to our country, you should. Do you think the demise of the Christian religion? I mean, King Charles, I cannot call him King Charles. I don't know why. I keep getting it wrong. Same with somebody said, oh, the Queen's on telly. And I thought, no, she's dead. They meant Camilla. Still don't see her as the Queen. And I'm not making any petty political point about Diana and their problems now. I'm just saying I still haven't got used to it, like him being the king. I mean, he's meant to be the supreme governor of the Church of England. But he had a big Muslim festival the other night at Windsor Castle. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. But has it diluted things? I've spoken about this many times, guys. You know, when we used to all go to Sunday school, didn't it give us a spine of values and judgments that we were meant to live by? My Catholic mates, they all went to Mass, but they had like a gathering in their Sunday school. You used to get a little sticker, didn't you, if you'd gone every week? So I went down to St. Nicholas. They've demolished it now. Many churches have been turned over to other religions. Can we learn something from those cultures? Do they look after their extended family better than ours? So this isn't an invitation to be a racist. But by the same token, I thought long and hard about this. Are you proud to be British? I will get the usual idiots who will just read that title, see the fact I've put the Union flag next to it, and immediately say, Gaunt has been a right-wing fascist. I don't want to be that at all. I just want to discuss, what is it to be British? What are our values? And then on the same level, do we value our history anymore? Are we ashamed? I mean, there seems to be many people, mostly in the police and in education and in the social services, who want us to be ashamed of our past. Well, I'm not. There are parts of it, like the slave trade and, the empire, where we can say, well, that wasn't right or quite right, or it had this advantage or that disadvantage. But we still brought democracy to the majority of the world. We still brought law and order. We brought the idea of a parliament, mind you, Don't know whether we'd get applause for that now. But also, has the woke culture that seems to have infested everything at the moment, has that weakened our Britishness? Does that make you feel less proud to be British? I just want your reflections. I don't want a thesis. I don't want anyone to go into too much depth. I just want your views. What is it to be British? Are you proud to be British? Because do you know what? I am. But sometimes I think to myself, what is it? What is it that I'm proud of? I'm certainly proud of Brexit. And look at the way that saved us now recently with this whole problem we've had with Zelensky and or Russia, and the way that Trump's going to treat us separate to the EU. That's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? Or was it better before? So what is it to be British? Right, I'm going to go straight to your comments. If you want to join in, feel free. Just write up a comment and then we'll discuss it. You can take this program wherever you want to take it. Get your mates involved as well. And if you like what I'm doing, why don't you do what these people have done at the bottom of my screen? They've donated at least a £5 for a cup of coffee. You just go to buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt if you want to help out. So thank you. Oh, and I've got to say a big thank you. I felt like the Queen myself this week. You are a Queen. But I did, because my birthday was on Monday, March the 3rd, but for some reason, Facebook always says it's the 6th. So I got quite a few people saying happy birthday on Monday, and I was inundated yesterday, even though it was the wrong day. But I want to say thank you to all of you, and a big thank you to those of you who said happy birthday and then either donated my coffee or indeed, even better on one level, subscribed and joined my YouTube page, channel, should I say, which is dead simple to do as well. It's 99p or $2.99 if you want to be a super fan. It all helps build the program. Pip Tomlinson, I'm British. I live in Barcelona now. What a lovely place to live. The interesting thing is that my Spanish friends have a more romanticized view of the UK than I do, whether it's music or culture, but they rarely mention politics. That's a really interesting point, because our music is something that defines us, isn't it? I mean, next to America, we definitely punch above our weight. Fantastic musical acts in all genres that have come out of this country. Of course, the Specials and Dexys and Two Tone and the rest of it, and punk. I see we lost the guy out of the Damned today as well. Isn't that weird? It's weird that your heroes are passing on. But let's talk about that. So is it music? And of course, it's culture as well. It's writing. It's Shakespeare. Could you imagine the French putting trigger warnings on their greatest writers like Molière? No. But in this country, so many people want to do that with Shakespeare. Why? Why aren't our kids brought up on it? Why aren't they absolutely taught and learn how exciting Shakespeare can be? Unfortunately, they see some duff production in some local rep theatre. The teachers don't even bother. Well, my wife was training to be a teacher at one point, and she was told, oh, we only teach certain scenes from Hamlet because they're the only ones they're going to get questions on. Kind of rather misses the point, doesn't it? That Shakespeare was the greatest writer in the English language ever. I mean, every soap opera, every film, you can trace it back to Shakespeare. Why isn't he a bigger hero? It's because kids get put off it at school. Where do we go next? Then I asked, are our politicians proud of our flag? You see, because I don't think they are, no matter which party. I think they get embarrassed. They certainly get embarrassed about the flag of St. George if you're English. But why? Why shouldn't you wrap yourself in it? You can't let the fascists and the racists. So when I say, by the way, British, it's nothing to do with the colour of your skin. It's whether you are part of our culture. And you could have been here for centuries, or you could have been here for a generation or two. I don't care, as long as you define yourself now as British. Please keep pressing the like button if you're enjoying what we're talking about. Afternoon, John says, Jozzle. Afternoon, mate. Kevin Routley. Afternoon, John. Just downloading your podcast for work in a minute. Now, Kevin, that's what I like to hear. Download the podcast, take them to work. You can listen to them there. No problem. Grant French, old friend of the program, on Facebook, he says, at what point do people wake up and realize our Prime Minister isn't working for us? Larry Fink gave him his instructions the other week. Is this all part of the World Economic Forum? I certainly don't think Grant is working for British people first and foremost. I would agree with you on that. I think it was ridiculous. The more I think about his coalition of the useless, why did he want to Well, he wanted to divert the attention away from his domestic failures, I guess, but also away from Trump. Listen, we cannot bring peace with Russia without Trump. Get it into your thick heads, you uber liberals. The world has changed. I'm not saying, therefore, Trump is wonderful and everything he does is right. But what I am saying is you have to live in the real world. So Starmer has that meeting, and now I understand there's a few more people who are joining the coalition of the useless. But in the end, they've still got to get Trump on side. It's all theatrical nonsense. Pip says, I've also met many expats from the UK and native-speaking countries who have been here years and years. He now lives in Barcelona, and he says they don't speak any Spanish. It goes both ways. Pip, I'm with you 100%. I think it's absolutely right. Go Gaunt, he says, Kev Phillips. Jossel says, not our so-called PM, that's for sure. He doesn't think that he's proud of us. And Joshua says, my birthday's tomorrow the 8th. Well, happy birthday for you. I'm sure everybody who doesn't know you thinks that's brilliant. I remember growing up, says Kevin, and the Sally Army used to turn up at the top of our road and give the lads chocolate and a little card. I miss that. I cycle a lot, and I also enjoy going to a place called Tilford. It's like an old England place. A river, a green, the village pub. Yeah, that's Britain, isn't it? That's Britain. And kids playing cricket. I love it there in the summer. I am proud to be British, says Kevin Routley. A fantastic place to live. Well, you see, I think despite all the efforts of the BBC and indeed the woke culture and indeed politicians, I still think this is a great, great country. But I think we've got to now start fighting for our country. We've got to say we've had enough of the dilution of our values, our culture, our simple way of life. You see, it's interesting. When you look at Scotland and Wales, they still have this massive national pride, don't they? You'll see it tomorrow in the rugby. There's something different with the Celts compared to us. I'm talking about as an English person. I'm English and British, right? However, why is that the case? And why is it that somehow we're almost ashamed to say we're British and English? Andrew Lloyd says, great show, John. Here in Thailand, the Thai flag is everywhere. They are a very proud nation and fly their flag high and proud. Now, that's a very interesting point. I used to say this all the time, that what we actually need is the flag flying on every public building. Not the gay flag, the lesbian flag, the transgender, whatever flag that is, the rainbow flag. I don't want to see any more rainbow pelican crossings either. Not because I'm anti-gay or anti-trans. It's ridiculous. It's tokenism. It's stupid. Oh, a local fire station in Warwick, right? They're always flying the rainbow flags. Why? What's wrong with the Union flag or the English flag or the Scottish flag if you're in Scotland? And I would have the flag, as I say, on every public building. I would also have the flag in the corner of every single classroom, not just in the hall, every classroom. People died for that flag. And we should be proud of that. And we should remember them. And kids should be brought up knowing the flag is theirs, whether they're black, whatever their religion is, if they're British. And that's what you should define yourself as first, British. Or admittedly, could be English, could be It could be Scottish, but basically British first. That has to come before anything else. Because if not, don't come and live here. Don't come and live here if you don't want to be British. That doesn't mean you lose your culture. Many people have come here, made Britain their life, made it their country, and have improved Britain. So I'm not saying it's about being white or being Christian or anything like that, but I'm saying it's about tying in to the British identity. And we are under threat with globalization, with the latest, with the war, with Trump. Even though I support him, it would be easy for us to lose our national identity and our British values. But then I ask myself, and I'm asking you today, what is our identity? What are our values? I came up with a few of the trite things. It's obviously fair play, it's the rule of law. But is it the rule of law anymore? We've got two-tier Britain, two-tier justice. Look at this thing with the sentencing guidelines. Everyone's slagging off Starmer. That's not Starmer's fault, by the way. It's the lawyers who make the sentencing guidelines. But they've come out of the same mould and the factory as all our politicians. This is one of the problems. We've got people in power and in positions of power, whether it's in councils or police or civic society, and they all run by a rule book that the rest of us don't subscribe to. It's the common purpose logic. And I think that's something we need to change, because I don't think we're terrible racists. I get so fed up when people say that. We're not. And just saying now we're going to control our borders, which they're not going to, but they should. You cannot be a sovereign country if you haven't got a border. If people can just come in willy-nilly, land in a rubber dinghy in Dover or in the back of a lorry and know they never get sent back, or overstay. Because don't forget, it isn't the people necessarily getting out of the boats that you've got to worry about. It's the overstayers. And I say, this whole thing about language, it's incredible that we're going to have more people who can't speak, millions of people who can't speak our language. How daft is that? How ridiculous is that? David, and I don't think that's been a fascist saying it, is it? Can you believe that now in schools they're now doing lockdown drills? Never even thought of when we were at school. What's happened to our once great country? David Edwards on YouTube. That's a good point. It's not just that. When are we going to wake up, Dave? I'm with you, by the way. There was another Allah Akbar terrorist attack in Germany last week. When are we going to say no? And, when somebody's going to say, look, we're getting these rapes, and some of these rapes are obviously being caused by new arrivals. Are we vetting them? No. Do we give people who come into our country a medical like the Australians do? No. This is the language and the stupidity of almost saying we give up, we surrender. But I don't think we should surrender, because I think our culture is brilliant. Our history is brilliant. There are things that we've got to address. And of course, we should confront racism, sexism, and the rest of it. But we need proper law and order. And that has to start when they first put their feet on the ground. So before Keir Starmer says he wants British boots on the grounds of Ukraine, maybe it'd be an idea, just a suggestion, Mr. Starmer. I refuse to call you sir, but it's just a suggestion. Why don't you secure our borders first? And why don't you know who's in the country? And how many more incidents do we have to see where young girls, native English girls and British girls, are being raped and sexually assaulted by some new arrivals? Now, I use the word some advisedly. I don't think everybody getting out of one of those boats is a rapist or a terrorist, but I sure as hell would like to vet them. And if you wanted to come and live in our country, what's wrong with that? I had some friends that I told this story ages ago. This is 20 odd years ago. They wanted to go to Australia and they got through everything. And then it was the medical. And I think he'd had a collapsed lung or something like that, which isn't that, major nowadays. But they wouldn't let him go unless he insured himself if that happened again, so it wouldn't cost the Australian tax authority people any of their tax dollars. Well, that's all right, isn't it? It's the same. Do you know we don't check for TB or polio or any of these things when these people are coming in? See, this is not an anti-immigrant rant that I'm on. I'm just saying, surely that'd be best for them and best for the rest of the population. Because I don't want to be superior here, but TB has come back. Polio has come back. Some of that is bad living conditions. I accept that. But that's because we've got too many people in the country. We're overcrowded, aren't we? In the majority of the country. It's not racist to say that. It's saying, let's have well-controlled, managed immigration. And we've got to, within that, keep the British identity, the British culture, the British traditions alive. I'm all for diversity. I'm all for that. But I don't think it's our strength, which is what the uber liberals keep pushing down your throats. It's nice. And it's certainly much better now that you can go and eat all different kinds of food, see all different types of culture. And you see that also represented on the telly. I haven't got a problem with that. I sometimes draw the line at every married couple in every blooming advert is mixed race. Is a black fella and a white woman or whatever. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. But you follow where I'm coming from. Anyway, and I noticed on Oliver last night, I was watching that, The One Show. I don't know why I was watching it, but they were at Buckingham Palace. That's where they said about the Queen. I thought, the Queen, what are they on about? And they meant Camilla, which is fine. She is the Queen now. They were doing a scene from Oliver. And the little lad playing Oliver was obviously of Asian extraction. And I actually thought, well, that's not a problem. He doesn't have to be a blonde, blue-eyed boy because it's not a historical artifact. It's Lionel Bart's musical. Do you understand what I'm getting at? So it didn't bother me that. And in fact, I thought, well, that's quite good. That's showing modern Britain. When I was looking for my photo, I've done a caption, which if you look on X or you look on Facebook or if you look on my YouTube channel, I got it done by Grok, you know, the AI thing. And I looked at it, I thought, oh, God. Are there enough black faces in here and Asian faces? Is there enough women in that picture? And as it happens, I didn't end up saying, I'm balls to this and just put it up because it's just meant to be your representation. As it happens, there are. But they're all very young. I thought about it afterwards, I thought, well, you got no oldies in that Gaunt. But you can't live your life like this, can you? Well, maybe we can. Enough is enough. Yes, Scotland is still Scotland. Shame to see England the way England is. This is from an Irishman that loves England. Thank you, Glenn. And you sum it up really there, Glenn, what you're saying. Jossel says, talking of Australia, when I lived there, it was only listening to your podcasts that kept me sane from the homesickness. What, you got homesickness for this? Happy to be back home now, though, despite the way this country is going. Well, that's what I'm saying. We could easily give up, mate, but I think we've got to fight back. Not in a racist way, not in a, oh, you can't be British. There's been some debate recently whether you can actually be English if you've got an Asian coloured skin. I mean, that's just bullshit. I can't be doing with that. And no, I couldn't be doing with, you know, when they try to whip up that storm about the black players missing the penalties. If we didn't have black players in British football at the moment, it'd be crap. You know, come on. None of that's necessary. And of course, the uber liberal, the very people who want to keep you in your place, they want to divide and separate the working class. You know, that term that Keir Starmer won't use, working people. The working people. Working class is what he means. It's us and them. And that doesn't matter whether you've got a black and Asian skin or whether you're Muslim or whether you're Sikh or whether you're a Jew. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Where was it up to? Matt, what are we allowed to feel proud of these days? That's a good question. There's a song about that, isn't it? When did you last feel proud? I can't remember what it is. Anyway, that should be the question. We're supposed to feel ashamed of our past. Even our flag upsets the woke. You're absolutely right. Glenn says, Ireland and Britain for the first time in history are united on this issue. You're right. They've got terrible problems at the moment with immigration. Steve says on YouTube, afternoon, John, let's be honest. Politicians are proud of our flags, As soon as we fly the flag, the Asian community want it down. They want their flags flying in our great British country. I say, no, this is the UK. Steve, that's rubbish. You know, it's not normally, you use this term, the Asian community. By Asian, do you mean Sikh, Hindu? Do you mean Chinese people because they're from the Asian subcontinent? What do you mean? Or do you mean Muslim? And do you know what? When it's a bit like this thing with the woke and the gay thing, it's always them causing trouble. It isn't often. It's often liberal twits in council buildings who cause this problem. And Norman Tebbit, he's a prime example. Remember when he said the cricket test? You can tell how patriotic somebody is to our great country when the cricket comes around, because they'll support Pakistan or they'll support India. Yeah. What a load of fascist nonsense, right? My mates, right? I've got some Muslim mates. When the cricket's on, they support their team, where they come from. Their mum and dads come from. Pakistan, maybe. Yeah? Do you follow where I'm coming from? But then, when it's football, they'll be supporting England. That's nothing wrong with that at all. Norman Tebbit was so wrong, and he caused problems with that because it's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. You can be proud of where you've come from and still even define yourself. Sometimes you're saying, oh yeah, I'm Pakistani. And what they mean, I know West Indies kids, right? I've been to the Caribbean more times than they've ever been because they've never been. They were born in this country, right? But they would still say if the West Indies were playing, they support the West Indies. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because it's about saying, wrapping yourself in our flag. Yeah. The British flag, which is for everybody. Yes. I know there's some people who say it's the butcher's flag and all the rest. Shut up. Let's unite behind that. Let's find our traditions. Let's find our cultures. Yeah. I really hate that stupid racism. I'm not saying you're a racist, Steve. I'm just saying think that through, mate. Think it through. Stephen Hibbard says, if it's that the British have the British have an inner confidence in themselves and don't need to shout about it. I'm not sure about that, Steve. I know where you're coming from because the Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish, they've got much more of a sense of pride in their country. If you go to, say, Scotland versus England, football, but particularly at rugby union, they're mad for it. When I lived in Scotland, I had a mate, and when they won the Triple Crown or whatever it was, he had a tie with Bannockburn, which, of course, was the last time the Scots beat us at anything. It's just a joke, but they were passionate for it. We don't get like that, the English. I think because it's kind of what you're saying, Stephen, we've been kind of conditioned not to be proud. Well, I'm a proud Englishman. I'm proud to be British. Sometimes I envy, like tomorrow, the rugby, right? After the Coventry match, super frank. I'm a hypocrite. After the Coventry match, I'm going to be watching, it's Ireland, isn't it? And France. Well, we always want whoever's playing France to win, don't we? That's what I thought was ironic, that in Keir Starmer's coalition of the useless, it's us and the French. What use will they be? Anyway, Ben says, great show, Gaunty. Thank you. That's on YouTube. Susan Broxup, a triumph of a nation has been sacrificed on the altar of an after-pub curry, a car wash, and a ready-to-eat sandwich. Pitifully, that is all that has been required. Susan, I like your thinking. I do like that. It is true, because there's a truth within your sarcasm. I was thinking this about Deliveroo. Clearly, most of those kids on those bikes, those motorized electric bikes, must be illegals. They must be. They have the big scarves around their face and all the rest of it. Good looks on them, they're trying to make a few bob. But it's like, do we want to sacrifice our security, our culture, our traditions and everything just to get our pizza lukewarm bashed about in a box on the back of somebody's back? It's Deliveroo and all the rest of them, Uber Eats. Don't you get fed up with that? You get an Uber now and you get all these adverts. If I wanted a pizza, I'd have one. I don't want one. Just get me to where I want to go to. And that's where we're living, isn't it? We're all so busy. We're so important. We need to have Uber. We need to have... It's nonsense. We're losing a sense of ourselves, our belief structures. No. And then you can't trust anybody, can you, in the establishment? Look at the care home scandals. I lost my job over that. But look at that. Abusing and raping girls and boys. Look at Rotherham. Look at the northern cities. You know, where do you want me to start or stop? Oxford, Coventry, Banbury, Birmingham, London. Oh, there's no abuse in London. Yes, Sadiq Khan, we believe that. Yeah, we believe that. But anyway, that's what he says. We have lost ourselves, and this has to stop. And that's what I was saying earlier about the two-tier justice. The sentencing board want to treat people, women and ethnic minorities, differently. No, and that will just cause more ruptures within our society. Don't you agree with me? Glenn Gannon, liberal idiots, doesn't matter about race, skin, colour. If you adhere to British values with respect and still remember your own roots, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I've been trying to say, mate. You're right. And that's where Tebbit was completely wrong. Ben says the liberal elite have infested every sector of society. They have. That's why we have rainbow laces in coppers' boots. That's why we have coppers going on a skateboard. I mean, today, do you see the sentences have been reduced for, I think, 6 of those Stop Oil protesters? The world is mental. I'm proud to be British, but do not feel our government are proud at all, says Paul Jones. I agree, Paul. I don't even think it's this government. I think it's the whole of the political class, the BBC, Channel 4. I mean, BBC and Channel 4, they'll put a programme on to wreck our culture, wreck our belief in ourselves, our history. They love nothing better. Churchill's this, Churchill's that. He was a con man. Yeah, Nigel Farage, oh, he's this. He's being paid by the Russian. It's just all such nonsense and so transparent, but they constantly drip it. I mean, that BBC documentary fronted by a lad whose dad was second in charge of Hamas. And look at the way they're treating Trump. What's Trump's crime? Now, I know there's been a few, but what's his actual crime at the moment? He wants peace. He wants peace. Yes, he wants to make money, but he wants peace. What's Zelensky up to? He's taking the peace. Hamas taking the peace. Hamas deserve to be bombed into the Stone Age, not the whole of the Palestinian area, but Hamas. They're animals. They're less than animals, aren't they? And why do we bend and do everything? Just there's a terrible thing. Adam, one of my listeners, sent me this piece in the newspaper about ritual slaughter, halal. And it's happening in a place called Arley, which is just outside Coventry, near Nuneaton, around that area, the old mining area, best way to describe it. There's an abattoir there. And they've had some undercover cameras. And these monsters, right, who believe in sacrificing because of some religious text, slitting the throats. They're saying like they were slitting the throats of sheep. They were abusing them, throwing them against walls. Now, I know some of this has happened in other abattoirs before. And I read all this and I was fuming by the end of it. And then I saw actually it was in the Independent, not a newspaper that I would have thought would have been critical about a part of the Muslim culture. But I don't know why we have ritual slaughter in this country. Why is it allowed? It's obviously all right with the king now because he had a big party the other night. And I'm not that worked up about it. I mean, I'll go and have me curry and I'll have lamb. And obviously that'll be halal because you understand that, But I just think, did you know most New Zealand, if not all of it, is now halal? When was this accepted? Burger bars, because they don't want to upset that community or what they think that community is. Because I go back to my point from before. It's obviously white liberals who cause this trouble. We can all get on and rub up against each other like we did before 9/11. Then it all changed. And then 7/7. And now we have these attacks. And these aren't all Muslims doing it, are they? These are just extremist nutcases. Anyway, more people have now entered Britain illegally on small boats than are in the British Army. No, not sure that's true. Check it out, Ben. It's an interesting fact, but I don't think so. What about British pride? Aren't we allowed? Not anymore. Why? John, this country is now too woke. The woke have taken over. It's madness, says Steve. Well, again, have they taken over, or have we just been too lazy and allowed them to do it? See, Brexit was meant to give us back some kind of pride, identity, but we never got Brexit, did we? Not proper Brexit. And what are our values? You see, when people got locked up for hurty words during the riots, was that British? When they were basically denied trials? I don't think it was. And then when our own Prime Minister called all of us, the white working class, effectively, racist thugs, that's when he lost me completely. And he's not pulled me back at all. Why do they hate us? Why do they hate working class white people, especially men? You see, because I wrote in my bit, is being British still something to be proud of in today's world? Or have recent events and political shifts made it harder to stand firm in that pride? Well, it has. But we should be proud. We should be proud. This is the country of great writers, great artists, great musicians, classical, pop, rock, rhythm and blues, even reggae, yeah? Here. It is still the home of democracy, although there are people in the mother of all parliaments who are trying to take that away. It is a country that still believes in free speech, although there are many people trying to deny our free speech. You can have free speech as long as it doesn't offend me. Well, that's not free speech, is it? This is the country where you can buy a newspaper which has by The Guardian, which has a totally different spin on a story than, say, The Sun, right and left. Although not so much now with The Sun, and maybe the Daily Mail. However, you can't listen or watch a news station like GB News if they dare to say that. They've got to have this so-called balance, which means be liberal. But the BBC can have programs presented by the son of a terrorist, because that's what Hamas are. It's just this whole thing. And this is why people are hating the liberal elite. They are absolutely hating Trump coming to power, because Trump is just going straight through that, isn't he, with a bulldozer, and J.D. Vance. I don't agree with everything they've said or everything they've done or are going to do, but they're challenging the status quo. And that status quo keeps them in power, keeps them in the money, the establishment. Ben says J.D. Vance was right when he called out Starmer about free speech. Too right he was. Finky Stingers. I don't understand why idiots like you come on my channel. He says, define British. Well, you obviously didn't listen or read the blurb. I'm looking for the definition of what British is now. It's part of what your job is. What do you mean by British? You're a moron, mate. You tell me what you think it is. Yes, you're an idiot. He just said, idiot, question mark? Yes. WTF is British, he's now saying. See, now he gets personal. But now you see, all I do is this. This is a really interesting thing I'd like to show you, Finky Stinkers. I'm going to now express my freedom of expression, my free speech, and do this. Ban user and delete comments. Bye-bye. Off you go. Off you go. Run along now. Thank you very, very much indeed. Steve is going to finish it off on YouTube. Says, John, I've listened to you going back many, many years. You deserve a medal. And to this day, you are the voice of the many, really. I wish I was. Then, mate, if I was the view of the many, maybe I'd start earning some money. Darbro 20. I'm not so proud anymore. We're surrounded by the left waffer. I like that. I love that. And Ben says, I miss Gaunty rolling his R's on TalkSport, laugh out loud with Sean and Chip. Good old Sean. Have you seen Sean, my ex-radio producer? He's now the transport correspondent for the BBC for the news. on telly. He was doing something about Gatwick Airport the other day. He's an inspiration. He's blind. He went blind when he was a child, but he's an absolute inspiration. When he wants to do something, he just does it. And people say, how can you be a TV reporter and blind? Watch him and find out and put away your prejudices. He was probably my best, well, certainly he's in the top 3 of my best ever radio producers. Because he was blind, he kept everything in his head, right? Everything was in his head. And he had this watch, like a Braille watch, and like something out of Fred Flintstone it was, and like a Braille typewriter. But he was so on top of his politics. And when I was talking to people like in a live phone-in, you can imagine the pressure of that, right? And he would say something in my ears, and I learned to trust him. So I'd just go, moo, and people would think I was dead clever. I wasn't. It was just him telling me. It's a bit like when David Coleman used to do Grandstand or Match of the Day. They'd be saying to him, new scores come in, and then he would just repeat it because you have to trust your producer. But he didn't tell me to shut up sooner when I called that guy a Nazi. Oh, well, there we are. End of career. But yeah, what a fantastic bloke. And he made me realise with disability, you've got to be very, very careful, not just to sort of write somebody off because they're blind or whatever it is. Great bloke. A really great bloke. I told you the story about him and David Cameron, haven't I? So I'll finish with that today. If you've heard it before, forgive me, but it's a great story. David Cameron we took David Cameron out for lunch, and he came to Talk Sport, and me and Sean were walking to this restaurant with him, and Sean goes, the speed he goes at, and my little fat legs, I couldn't keep up. Eventually, we get to the pub or the restaurant, whatever it was, and he's got the guide dog, right, and the rest of it. He says, this is the place, lads. Mr. Cameron, it's in here. So in we go. So we get talking, and David, what do you talk to somebody who's Eton educated and is the Prime Minister? I know he wasn't. He was the leader of the opposition. He became the Prime Minister a few months later. But anyway, there we are. He goes, oh, I've got to say, Sean, remarkable the way you walk at such speed through London. And he said, because when I first met you, I didn't realise you were visually impaired, as he got the right correct. Because this is the guy who did Hug a Hoodie, isn't he, and the rest of it. Anyway, so he says visually impaired. Sean goes, blind? He goes, yeah. He says, yes, that's right. He said, I didn't realise. And I said, no, he's like that. I said, because when he's walking around the office, you'd never know, because you know where everything is, don't you, Sean? And it was amazing. He never bumped into anything, right? And he said, yeah, well, you've got to learn how to do it. You've got to learn where everything is. And the other thing Sean could do was brilliant. He'd hear somebody walk in and he'd say, all right, Kevin. And like Kevin was a big South African fella. He was head of advertising or something. He was about 6'8", rugby player, huge guy. And he'd say, all right, Kevin. And I go, how the hell do you know that's Kevin? I could tell by the stride because he'd listened to the steps. What a talent, right? What a talent. So anyway, so David Cameron goes, oh, no, I didn't realise you were visually impaired. He said, I said, oh, well, that's because he doesn't wear the sunglasses. Sean turned around to me, right, because he never wore these glasses. He says, what do you mean, Gaunty? I said, well, you don't wear glasses, the black sunglasses like all blind people do, right? Me being prejudiced. He says, not everybody who's blind wears sunglasses. I said, yes, they do. He says, no, they effing don't. I said, yes, they effing do. No, they don't. This is right in this pub, right? With David Cameron, we're having a row, right? I goes, no, yes, they do. He says, no, they don't. So then to win the argument, I said, how the fuck would you know? There was silence, right? Because obviously saying, how the F would you know? I was implying because he's blind. Cameron, honestly, I'm not making this up. I heard his bum cheeks clang, right? Because this was political correctness off the scale, right? The woke were now dead. I had just said the unsayable. There was a pause. Then Sean just turned around and said, you, right? And laughed his socks off. Why? Because it was funny. And the intent, we were mates. I wasn't trying to put him down. And anyway, in a sense, like Alf Garnett, I was putting myself down because I was being ridiculous, thinking that everybody who's blind wears sunglasses like Stevie Wonder. It's like the old joke. Have you seen Stevie Wonder's girlfriend? No, neither's he. Right? Well, it's funny. We're about 30 years ago. It ain't funny now, is it? But that's the story of Sean. Brilliant guy. And I wish him all the best. The other one was, he was in, he ended up doing Washington. Was it Washington? He was, no, it was, I think, not Cameron. The next Prime Minister, he's in the Rose Garden there. He goes to ask a question. And this guy, I don't know if it was Rishi Sunak or Boris, I think it was. Boris says, he points to Sean and says, yes, we'll have one from you now, Gary, right? Now, remember, he's blind, so he's not seeing the point. But the only other person who's blind who would be in the Rose Garden is a guy called Gary, who was the political correspondent. He's now in Washington. He's a marvelous guy as well. Incredible what he can do, right? And there was this pause, and Sean says, no, Prime Minister, I'm the other one. And I love that kind of idea of somebody just trying to be so politically correct and effing it up. Is Sean still on the BBC? Yes, he is. I loved the banter on TalkSport in those days. Yeah, it was brilliant. But it was a long time ago, mate. A long time ago. It was when I was mainstream, if that's what they want to call it. Anyway, right, I'm going. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it got you thinking. Hope that got you thinking about what is British. I haven't got the answer. But I do think we're being diluted. Not by the colour of people's skins, but by the liberals, the uber liberals, who somehow don't want us to be proud. Well, I am proud. I'm proud of what this country's achieved. I'm proud of what we did in the First World War and indeed in the Second World War. I'm proud of what we did in the Falklands as well. But I don't want any more British blood shed in foreign fields. Starmer, are you listening to me? The British public are not with you. We do not want British boots on the ground. We do not want body bags back at Bryce Norton. Get a grip, you buffoon. And there's a whole list of things you need to be getting on with. I'd suggest you start at the top and don't finish till you get to the bottom. That's a Paul Weller song, isn't it? Anyway, I'm back. I'm probably going to do one over the weekend, actually. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget, join my my YouTube channel. You can subscribe for nothing, or you could become a member. That's 99p, I think. It's cheap as chips. Then you'll never miss any of the videos. Also, look into buying me a coffee if you fancy. You don't have to. You can still watch it for free. You freeloading twits. Anyway, until we meet again, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, don't forget to tell them you love them. See ya.